So good. So good. Good morning.
Wow, that's a powerful intro. Oh my gosh.
That was done overnight in some of the in the off time. So high five, Elias. Thanks for putting that together.
Yeah, it was fun, honestly.
Yeah. So welcome everybody to this is another day of live broadcast for the Road to Global Entrepreneurship Week. My name is Dave Berlin. I am the state organizer for the Global Entrepreneurship Network here in Nevada. Joined with Elias. Elias is one of the community organizers for North Las Vegas, and we have a very special guest today, Cecilia, coming. Are you in Tulsa or where are you at today?
I am currently in Tulsa.
Love it, love it. And for those of you that do know me, Tulsa is one of my favorite places in the whole world. And Cecilia and I met years ago when we were serving other ecosystem programs right there in Tulsa. And wouldn't you know, life comes full circle. And now we're here changing the world one community at a time. So Cecilia, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your role with Global Entrepreneurship Week, Global Entrepreneurship Network, and what are you excited about?
Well, that's a lot of things to cover. Okay. Hi. Thank you for having me. My name is Cecilia Wessinger. As Dave said, I'm the director for global community for the Global Entrepreneurship Network. So the Global Entrepreneurship Network is a global nonprofit based out of DC, but we have team members all over the world. And we're the organization that helps fuel Global Entrepreneurship Week. So that started about 16 years ago when the Kauffman Foundation and the founders of the Global Entrepreneurship Network and team had gone over to the UK to celebrate small and mid-sized enterprises. So they had Enterprise Week, which still takes place. They thought, wow, what a great idea, celebrating small businesses. And we should bring this back to the United States. And then they said, well, no, actually, let's just bring it to the whole world. So this is the 16th year that we're celebrating. And it's grown from about roughly 22 countries when they initially started to currently about 10 million people, 40,000 events, 20,000 organizations celebrate Global Entrepreneurship Week, which is happening just as you kick this off right now. So what's exciting? Well, to see what all is going on around the world. I think that this is our opportunity to get a snapshot of how people celebrate, why they celebrate, the things that they're doing. It's an amazing journey every year to find out what's new and have places that, have for the past couple of years maybe been a little bit quiet because they have political tensions or strife or disasters, and they bounce back. And I don't know. I don't want to harp on resilience because I'm really annoyed about resilience right now. I don't want to have to be resilient, but when I get an email from a country like Myanmar, who that have been experiencing a lot of turmoil in the country, and they said, you know what, we're going to do something to celebrate our founders this year, and so they make an effort. So that's a lot from me. Let me know if you have any questions.
Yeah. So you've seen so many different communities evolve. As you know, Vegas is in a really unique spot with some of the bills that have been signed and things like that. What challenges have you seen in other communities? And how have you seen Global Entrepreneurship Week help? It doesn't fix anything, but how do you see it be important to cities that have challenges in their ecosystem?
Well, absolutely. So congratulations, Nevada, to be the first state to sign Right to Start legislation. Right to Start legislation is a proposed set of nonpartisan policy initiatives that have been stewarded and advocated by the team at Right to Start. It evolved from the time that Victor Huang, the founder for Right to Start, was the vice president of entrepreneurship at the Kauffman Foundation. I had the honor and privilege of being a consultant at the foundation at the time when we were supporting entrepreneurial ecosystem building efforts, which has since evolved and expanded. So that's exciting too. But when Victor had left the foundation, he started a grassroots advocacy group. And I'm proud to be one of the ambassadors for Right to Start. We're working on that here in Oklahoma. And currently, I believe that there are 13 states with legislation proposed, but Nevada's number one because you pass that legislation first. So, and Victor was just in Nevada. I saw him in Phoenix at the Startup Champions Summit. And so he's taking a road trip currently. And he's making his way from Los Angeles or Orange County, where he now lives, to Arkansas. So understanding that people ask me all the time because I've had this 30,000-foot view of ecosystems, primarily around the United States and now globally in this role, because I'm the primary interface with the community. And I would say ecosystems are fragmented, they're siloed, they're heavily curated, and there's a lot of ownership, just like everywhere else. So each ecosystem has a unique thing that they're great at and something that they're really not good at. And, we used to talk about the idea of best practice. I think best practice gets a little lazy. I don't want to find the best practice because one size does not fit all in an ecosystem. But what I've noticed is that there are noteworthy practices. So there's something you can learn. So recently I was in Phoenix. There's a way that they've integrated a lot of arts into the things that they do, and they've brought together multicultural communities to help create that spark and art and creativity being the through line of the things that they do and coalescing the community. I think Vegas, I mean, there's no other city in the world like Las Vegas, right? And while the focus is on tourism and casinos and shows and things like that, there's a lot of innovation that's going on there. I mean, the idea of putting in a concert venue like the Sphere, it takes a lot of founders and a lot of creatives and technologists and people with forethought to be able to bring something like that together. And nothing against you too, but I think that in a place like the Sphere, if you could put a decent bar band in there, you'd still have a rockin' concert.
Yeah. And hopefully the tickets wouldn't cost as much.
That's what I'm saying.
Right. Cecilia, thank you, for sharing a lot of that. I mean, there definitely needs to be a lot more advocacy for entrepreneurs, all around the world. And, we're grateful to be in Nevada, very business friendly, especially compared to some of our counterparts, across the Great Pond towards Europe. But for folks that are watching and still new to Right to Start, that don't really understand what that actually is, would you mind to just kind of give us a quick explanation on like what Right to Start is, what the implication of that is? That'd be so helpful.
So I want to make sure that we know that it's not supposed to make it easy, right? I mean, this stuff is hard enough, but maybe to make it easier. Things like non-competes, non-compete sounds really equitable, like it's balancing or leveling the playing field. But unfortunately, when you think about somebody who's worked their whole life in a profession and you tell them that they cannot practice that profession, whether they're in the company or they spin out and try to do something by themselves, like you're taking somebody's livelihood and their skill set and their knowledge and telling them that you can't do that. The only ones that benefit from that are the big corporations or people that are trying to slow you down. The idea of cooperation. So there's cooperation and competition, how you benefit the greater I would say the industry, whatever your area of practice is, but still be able to compete and thrive in a way that helps. When we talk about a rising tide lifting all ships, and saying, you know what, if I get better at my craft, then it encourages you to up your game, right? But if you tell me that you're the only one that can play that game, then it does kind of make us a little bit more lackadaisical and lazy, and not have to thrive to get better at what we do. So think about who benefits from things like that, and why is there a, a fear of competitive advantage, or what makes your unique idea unique. And it's just a tilting of the playing field. So understanding that there's a bunch of legislation that we can eliminate. Why does it take 55 forms in certain counties in order to even create an LLC? Right, because you have to register with so many different people. You think about Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico has a very unique problem. Puerto Rico not only has to register a business with the IRS because they're a commonwealth of the United States, but they also have to register with the State Department because they're not quite a state. So imagine that you're a business owner in Puerto Rico trying to establish a business, and you know what you know, you don't know what you don't know, and there's a whole world of things you don't know. And then finding out that everywhere you turn, in order to do the thing that you just simply want to do, that you would have to weed through so much paperwork, so many different agencies that may not have anything to do with you. So the idea of right to start, and there's a bunch of different things that it supports, that it's just about leveling the playing field a little bit and making it just a little bit easier. So the idea of right to start is that everyone has the ability, just like a right to liberty and the pursuit of happiness, to be able to start something if that's what you choose to do. It doesn't mean that you have to start a business, but the barrier should not make it more difficult and impede the path of others.
I love it. And then you said there's other states that are looking at it too. What does the process look like for that? And how long? I was newly aware to it when you made me aware of what Nevada was doing, but with us being the first state, do you see other states following behind fairly quickly? What kind of metrics are they looking for?
I don't know. It depends on the state. I know that Missouri was one of the first states that moved it forward, and it passed one house, but then it didn't pass another. And I think you start with just about anything else, right? The way that you start a movement is you find some advocates and the people that are in the rooms to start talking about it. So I remember, Dave is famous for saying, nobody wants to be first, but everybody wants to be next. So we're hoping that Nevada, having been first, will lead the way. But a couple of years ago, when Victor was coming through the state of Oklahoma, which is where I currently live, and he was stopping by and we were going to have lunch together, I invited some founders and I invited my state senator to come meet us for coffee. And Senator Joanna Dossett met with Victor, met the founders. She got very inspired and she wanted to move that legislation forward, right? Just to make it, like you said, we all want to be business friendly, but what does business friendly actually look like?
Yeah.
And so she reached across the aisle and found somebody in the other party that wanted to also support this. Like I said, it's nonpartisan legislation, so it's not bias against one or the other. And then now the idea is not only bipartisan, but also bicameral, so that you reach across to somebody else who is in a different house. If you're part of the Senate, then you reach out to a House representative and you try to get them to advocate too. And it's consensus building, right? It's understanding what are the things that hold us back? Why do people not do this? And usually it's because they've never thought of it before, right? Nobody in and part of the challenge is each separate department of a government agency has to think about the things that they need. It's not that they want to make it harder, but they create guidelines for their own respective agencies, and then other departments do the same. What they don't do, unfortunately, government, universities, they're all infamous for being very siloed, and they don't talk to each other. And maybe what they don't realize is that the paperwork that you need for your department is very similar, but then you have like one or two line items that are different. So now you have two different forms. And then if you multiply that against like five other agencies, then it becomes a plethora of forms that where you can maybe come together and say, wow, these forms are pretty much similar. I really don't need this, but because I put this line in here and you put this other line in here, we have to have separate individual forms. So things like that just make it an additional hurdle. And they may not even know. It's not like they're malicious about it. Right? So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If I can chime in there, that reminds me of some conversations that I was a part of here for the local ecosystem, specifically on empowering minority-owned businesses, minority-owned business owners to be able to do more business with the government and with other large procurement institutions. In Las Vegas, hospitality is a big one, obviously, and MGM, Venetian, all of these hotels, have really complicated processes for becoming a vendor. And so there was a conversation around centralizing the like vendor registration system between like government portals and hotels. And that would just make it easier for a business owner to be able to get registered once in the vendor portal, and then and then the benefit to the institutions for doing this would be that they could push out notifications to the vendor pool that matched the RFP that they want. And so I hope that we can, move towards making things easier, of course, for business owners, because things, definitely can be extremely daunting and probably overdoing it. But moving to a question here, we had an interview with Hua Wang here in Vegas, and she is a director for Generator, a local accelerator program, and she brought something up that was new for me to hear about, which was digital tax, and also international, like other countries, forcing American-based businesses to, work with certain like digital providers, potentially share source code, and so to me that's relatively new. I think super pumped. Dave's been talking a lot about that. Talked a little bit about that with the Uber launching in China. But I mean, what's can you share some of the real aspects and real threats there, and what if anything, business owners and ecosystem advocates should be doing to, play on a better playing field internationally?
So first, I'm going to invite you to use a different phrase than minority. Minority always feels like there's a scarcity mindset around it, and so we usually call it out for what it is, which is either marginalized or historically excluded demographics. It's not to say that they're less than, right? So I know that if you look at this podcast, if you see the picture of all of us, there are a heck of a lot more people that look like me than look like other people. I mean, but when we go into this with a mindset that I come from a minority demographic, then you're already starting out with this mindset that you're less than other people. So it's just a change of a phrase. It's not necessarily to say that it's a bad attitude or a bad term, but I just know that that when we start talking about people as a minority, it already puts them a lower level down. So that's just a semantics thing, but it's also a mindset thing. So understanding that the idea that you want to be competitive, or a company wants to be competitive internationally, doesn't necessarily, I used to have a notion that if we eliminated some of these other constraints, right, things like the taxes, that it would make it a level playing field for other people. Now, how is that fair to the people in those countries, right? When you understand that the access to technology, the access to resources is greater in a place like the United States than it is in other countries, then you're taking them and putting them into a place where the playing field isn't level for the people in country. Now, there's an interesting thing about, I think Dave and I have talked about this. It's the 100-mile rule. The idea that exotic is sexy. So if you're coming from someplace else, then you're better than, more interesting, smarter than the people that are already there. So all the people that live in a certain place have a tendency to feel like they're excluded, or they're not taken seriously, because the powers that be, the resources, the people that pay for stuff, or the government entities that may contract, they may think that the wisdom comes from someplace else, the skill sets come from someplace else. And everywhere in the world that I've ever been, or every country, every city that I talk to, they're focusing on two things: talent attraction and talent retention, right? They feel like the smartest people are going to go away, and they feel like they need other people to come in order to fill that gap. And so when you think about things like levies and taxes and tariffs and things that governments put in place, it really is, in part, yes, it helps benefit and fund the government, but it also puts the ability for people to resource talent and businesses and skills and other services within that country easier than it is to come from outside. Does that track? So it's a way to be able to promote let's buy local, as opposed to inviting people in. I know that the idea of business is to try to go and expand to other places, and you should. But understand that it's not just to keep you out. It's actually also benefiting the people that live in those countries, or those provinces and cities.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for this, semantics. I can see how that, is an important distinction as we continue to do some of the community and advocacy work. But going back to the point of the international expansion, um, the to your to that shared point, the point of business is almost to grow, and of course grow sustainably, and a big part of that is expansion. And so the angle from which you shared it, I can see that point. But what is like, what should businesses be doing then? Like localizing their strategy, further. I mean, what are some, I guess, is there, do these roads ever cross where it's a combination of, being able to expand, without being, taking too many resources or competing unfairly with locals, but also being able to expand in a conscious way and, benefit the locals. I mean, I'm kind of throwing it out there. I mean, what are your reactions to that?
So it's an interesting thing. This whole idea of scale and world domination becomes um, the the holy grail, right? It's the thing that companies want to do, is they want to grow to the point that they're huge and they own everything. And I don't think that's healthy. I think that the healthier perspective is to find coalition partners, or other people to actually partner and work with, so that you actually understand the people that are boots on the ground that are your customers. So it goes back to basic principles of product market fit. And we think that every country should have Coca-Cola, right? And across the world, almost 200 countries, you can buy a bottle of Coca-Cola. But you know that that bottle looks different. It's there are plants in those countries that manufacture. The recipes are slightly nuanced different. They're not exactly where it's, or look at McDonald's. If you go to McDonald's in Boston, you know, you can get a lobster roll. I can't say it's the best lobster roll you'll ever get, but you can get a lobster roll. And the menu, yes, you can get a Big Mac, you can order fries, you can get a shake in Hong Kong. But in Hong Kong, they also have different things on the menu. So it's the idea that it doesn't have to be one size fitting all, right? It doesn't have to be domination in a way that maybe the franchises are owned locally, or or they incorporate something unique into their formula or their menus. So understanding that it's not that you have to own everything, you have to do everything. I think we keep using these industrial age terms, right? I don't know that the idea of a business is necessarily to be as huge as you could possibly expect it to be, but maybe to be sustainable, right? So I think about sustainability of a business, and not all business owners want to have 50 stores and employ, you know, we talk about people that own businesses in impoverished areas right here in the United States. And we've been told by small business owners that being the biggest, the most renowned is not the goal. Business owners want to go into business so that they can be their own boss, maybe take a vacation, put food on the table, have shelter. Those are things that are more common. But you know, there's a saying about the tallest poppy. Do you know what happens to the tallest poppies? They get their heads cut off, right? So understanding that in certain areas, when you are the most renowned entrepreneur, right? Everybody knows you, everybody knows you're successful. You also then become prey to predatory lenders. You become a victim of supply chain wonkiness, right? And so understanding that that's not everyone's goal. Not everybody wants to own a huge conglomerate, to have the biggest company in the world. And I think that we mistakenly think that that's the goal. And I think that the things that people want, maybe you have an itch to scratch, maybe you have a great idea that you want to bring to the world. It doesn't mean that you want to be the next Amazon, Google, you know, Facebook, whatever.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Yeah, I think it's been interesting because we're starting to see a lot of people come from other communities, right? Vegas, that's happening with the pro sports teams and things like that. And there's not really a fine line, but there's definitely people that are trying to be a part of it. And I think the anecdote that you're referring to that I came up with is like, you know, sometimes a prophet's never praised in their own community. And it's like they'll rather listen to somebody from out of town with a briefcase. And it's interesting because I often look to people to give us their insight. I was hanging out last night. I'm at the Military Influencer Conference, and I ran into Shady De Jesus, and she was very instrumental in a lot of the ecosystem development in Austin. And I'm just like, hey, like, let us pick your brain. Come talk at GEW next week and share what the path of an ecosystem has looked like from your perspective, because sometimes it can pave a way for some of those things that we might already be experiencing. But it doesn't have to be, you know, somebody that comes in and they take our jobs or anything like that. It's sometimes those jobs shift, but we see the local people really step up. I think at least in restaurants, I've seen a switch, right? I grew up in a very small town in Oklahoma. Like we couldn't wait. And when we got Chili's, it was like, we got Chili's. It was the greatest thing in the world. But then when something like COVID happened, we resonate more with the local business owner and we want to support local. And there is a unique line in communities like Las Vegas where I think other people would be interested to support local. They're afraid to go outside of the bubble of what they know on the strip. So that's one thing that we're hoping to kind of help cross that is, hey, stick around for a little bit more. You know, we're doing this during F1. F1 is next week. And we're hoping that people see some things that they didn't quite expect with some stuff going on with Global Entrepreneurship Week, where maybe they just want to spend a little time, and maybe not spend more time here, but just spend more time looking at Las Vegas a little differently.
I think it's what makes a place unique, right? We talk about placemaking and the idea that that what makes Vegas special is the unique things that happen in Vegas, and a lot of those are the restaurants, the shops that you can go to. If every single shop sells the same thing, why do you need so many of them, right? Except for proximity. But understanding that if you go to any town in the United States or any town in the world, what is it that makes that makes you want to go back? Is it the special? Is it that you could eat in the same chain restaurant that you could eat in at home? And some people do appreciate that, right? So understanding that there's a comfort that goes into seeing the same chains and being able to get the same meal. But there's also the experience of going someplace else. Why would you travel so far? Now, as far as finding out that, you know, like you said, exotic is sexy, and I would always advocate that you should go find a friend in another town that's 100, 200 miles away, right? And then you work in collaboration with each other. So here in Oklahoma, the two big cities are Tulsa and Oklahoma City. If you invite people from Oklahoma City to come to Tulsa and probably say the same exact thing you say, then it'll sound brilliant, right? It'll be like, oh, amazing. Or they can come and advocate for you. So I would say go find some friends in Reno, right? There's some fabulous people in Reno that I just spent a couple of days with over at the Startup Champions Summit. And they need advocates to be able to cheer on the things that they're doing the same way that you do in Vegas. And you know, the reminder for all those big companies or the government entities that try to attract people into your city is that you're still there, right? So Formula One, great, glad it's coming, but it's going to come and go, and you're left standing. So understanding that you're the consistent thing, and I would say, you know, the idea that you contribute to their economy on a consistent basis. It's not the flash in the pan. Great, you can make things happen with the biggest spark. Now, that's not to say that those things aren't important, because it'll attract people that would not maybe have come to see you, right? So it's what I've learned a lot about in entrepreneurial ecosystem building is it's a lot like improv. So, you know, the rules of improv are yes and. So don't block. Try to build, and you build with a brick, not building a wall by yourself. So think about all those things that you do in improv, and you can put that towards entrepreneurial ecosystem building for what it's worth.
I love it. As we begin to wrap up, to be mindful of everyone's time, you've seen so many communities evolve from your position, and seeing how Global Entrepreneurship Week, again, it doesn't solve all the problems, but it can be a catalyst for that. Last year, we were really excited about how many events we were able to put together. I was kind of the solo volunteer. I did have a lot of people step up, but now more in the official capacity with Elias and Megan stepping up as community organizers. What advice would you have for a newer community that's getting involved with Global Entrepreneurship Week as we connect more with the community and try to educate the community, what advice would you have for us?
Well, thanks for asking. Start, right? You don't have to do anything that you don't always do. So there are 100 and some odd 1 million cups communities that meet every Wednesday morning. So make sure that you have a 1 million cups during Global Entrepreneurship Week. And Global Entrepreneurship Week is a celebration. It's a point in time, right? But the thing about Global Entrepreneurship Week that I always encourage people to think about is it's simply a tool. So it's a tool to come together as a community to work on something together, right? And it's the working on something together that's the important part. So it doesn't just happen. The outwardly facing thing is what happens during the week. But the other 365 the other 51 weeks of the year, those are the times that you come together as a community and you think about what else you can do. So think of it as just a mechanism. The other thing is it's a celebration of entrepreneurs, but it's also an invitation to those who haven't thought about entrepreneurship as a viable path, right? Because like I said, you know what you know, you don't know what you don't know. There's a whole world of things you don't even know that you don't know. And while it's Entrepreneurship Week, it doesn't mean that you have to start a business, right? You could be entrepreneurial, and you could be entrepreneurial in a big company, just like you can be entrepreneurial in a small company. So understanding that the most important thing is you don't do it alone, right? So if you're ecosystem building by yourself, you're basically ecosystem building. And I learned something recently. A friend of mine introduced me to Jane Y. Scarin, and I'm probably mispronouncing her name, and I apologize. And she's a foremost expert on network principles on collaboration and success. So I'm going to share with you 4 things that I learned from her. Network principles for collaboration and success. You think about doing this work together, because ecosystem building is a team sport. You don't do it by yourself. But the idea is, number 1, focus on mission before organization. Number 2 is to manage through trust, not control. Promote others, not yourself, and build constellations, not stars. So if we follow those principles, then I think we've got a pretty good shot at moving the needle forward.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, that was super excellent. Definitely going to grab the sound bites later. So.
Awesome. Well, you've got a whole world to change and inspire and support. Thank you for everything that you do. I remember last year whenever I found out you were going to be in that role, and I just got so excited because we've spent so much time pouring into the community like Tulsa, and I think we may be planning a trip in December. So if that happens, I will definitely let you know. I don't know if you're traveling, but are you?
I am. I'll be on the other end of the earth.
Oh, okay. So, no big deal.
I'll be in New Zealand for the holidays. Yeah.
But yeah, thank you.
But we'll look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for everything. And with that, we will catch you soon.
Okay. Thank you all for what you do.
It was great meeting you.
Bye.
Some people come, a lot of our clients are people who have had success in some capacity, but they're not known for it, right? So they've exited a company or they've done really well in corporate, and now they want to speak or to consult or to, sell a product or a service. So they come. So a lot of people will launch their brand using a book. So, but I think you have to have some expertise or knowledge, or have a plan to interview people that have that expertise or knowledge. So most of our clients tend to be people who have done something, they're subject matter expert, and now they're writing the book on that.
Oh, yeah, that's exciting. What is the theme that you see with those entrepreneurs that are or leaders that are in the space of like the writing? And do you see kind of a similar theme or a similar flow as like that process, or like what is that like one moment they're like, I have to do this, I can't like unknow, like you said, like I had this idea, they trashed it, but I knew that it needed to be heard. And I think that's such a good point too, because again, when you have this expert that they've already honed in their craft, you didn't see all the years of honing in the craft to get to that thing, so where you can create the masterpiece in that time frame. And so when now you're utilizing something like AI, it's a tool, it's a resource. It's not to take over, it's not to do for you, it's to enhance and to expedite. But it still is going to take you. And you still have to figure out, okay, what is your voice? And so it doesn't just sound so robotic.
Have you seen folks that have been excellent at getting ChatGPT or another AI tool to adopt their tone of voice?
Yeah. There's some people that are really, my friend Alicia Little, she teaches AI, and I say she speaks robot. Like she just inherently knew how to prompt it. And but also, you know, she spends 2 days sitting there, like like doing micro prompt after prompt, versus I think a lot of people think, I'm going to sit down and then write the book, and then it's total garbage. Whereas she would be like, okay, write this story. And she'd like give it some verbal prompts. And then she would say, okay, now add some emotion. I mean, I think the voice piece is the most exciting from a book perspective. But you know, we got rid of copywriters because we had mediocre copywriters writing copy, not ghostwriters. I still think there's some people who have successfully figured out how to micro prompt and like get a book out. We need a bio, we need marketing ideas, we need a social media calendar, like all of that stuff. AI does it so well. So we might as well just prompt it and pull it out. So I think that's fantastic. But I was just at 20 Books to 50K is a huge author conference. There's like 3,000 authors all here at the Horseshoe Casino right now. And there's some that have done a beautiful job of pulling from all of the different, you know, like Claude and ChatGPT. Like there's other, it's not just ChatGPT, and they all have different kind of features. And there's some that have done a beautiful job of creating these wrappers, if you will, so that you can just go, okay, I want to use this one and pull it out. Okay, and they're mostly fiction writers, so they're like, I want this character. And I think that usually if you're struggling to pick a lane, or if you think your market is everybody, I just think it's one of those monsters. So figuring out which monster is talking to you, I always say give them a sandwich. You're never going to get rid of them, but just give them a sandwich. It's like a little kid, you know, put them in the back seat, give them a snack. Here, watch a show. Like you're good to go. I'm going anyways. Like you know.
I love that. So you said fear of failure, fear of success,
fear of judgment,
and imposter syndrome. Man, that's
pretty
fire.
Good.
I like that one.
So you said you're in Canada, right? And you lived up and down all over. Did you come straight to Vegas after that, or how long have you what was that journey coming to Vegas, and how long have you been here?
I've been in Vegas. Well, COVID. I'm a COVID.
COVID
brought me here. I was in Los Angeles. So originally we came. This is such a typical, like most people think I'm crazy, but entrepreneurs won't. So my husband got into acting because we were in real estate, and you know, he got a little bored, and so he got into acting, and you know, later in life, and we're about 4 or 5 years into it, and I'm getting impatient. So I'm like, you know what? Like these bit parts that you get in Vancouver, you want to do comedy, let's just move to Los Angeles. But you got to have a visa. So we looked at different visas, and I'm like, well, I'll go look to see if I can buy a business. So I spent 6 weeks off and on in LA looking for a business.
But anyways, after I like licked my wounds from that, you know, doing what entrepreneurs need to do, it's you pivot and you pivot to the markets. And so I've been, focused on that, and it is kind of mind blowing in terms of, what is possible. I mean, the productivity, like the output is 10 times plus, if not 100 times more compared to last year. Like, it's insane. And, even the book, I use ChatGPT to help me, work through my thoughts and, plug in research and stuff like that. And so I can't imagine where it's going next.
I see Global Entrepreneurship Week as a way to bring people together and to showcase and highlight what everyone's doing. One thing I love about Las Vegas is it is a big little city. We have global recognition, but it is a small town, and you can run into the same people at one event in the morning and at the same event or a different event that evening all the way across town, because we're all doing everything that we can to move this. My name is Dave Berlin, and I'm the state coordinator with Global Entrepreneurship Week, and I'm here at the roof of the incredible Ahern Hotel, one of our partners this year, and I'm very excited to see so many of the entrepreneurial groups and business owners come together. And the reason why I got involved with Global Entrepreneurship Week is it helps me further my mission to connect the people of our city, so together we can show the world who we really are. I just want to thank everybody for raising their hand and participating in Global Entrepreneurship Week.
Drove down, had nowhere to live. We were in one of the hotels for 6 weeks trying to get somewhere to live.
Yeah.
So not planned well. But like the entrepreneurial community here is phenomenal. Like I joined a group called Entrepreneur Organization, and they're my people. Like, you know, I tell these stories and they're like, oh my gosh, I did something just like that.
Yeah.
Whereas most people are like,
you're crazy.
What?
Right.
You did what? And then you did that after you did that. Like, and so I love it here, and family oriented. I've made, and I was in LA for 4 years. I don't have a close friend in LA. And here, I've been here 2.5 years. I see somebody I
maybe a degree of separation here in Vegas.
It's amazing.
And again, and it's like that can be great, and that can also be.
I just sit with them. I'm like, what's going on, girlfriend?
Yeah.
And it comes out.
Yeah. And I think that that's what the beauty is, especially in the female space, is because we tend to come together a little bit more. We tend to share a little bit more. And I think if that's anything that any men out there can learn from us, is speak up. Because even for them as well, there's this like facade and person that they are supposed to be too. Just as women, we bear these burdens, men bear the burdens too of they're supposed to be the strong ones, and they're supposed to, not show emotions and not emote, period. And they have to be the providers and do all these things. And I remember thinking about that because I'm divorced, and just reflecting on my, past relationship, and just just all the intricacies with that, and just thinking like, wow, I can't imagine being in a space of all of the stress that could happen, as far as having to be the provider, and really knowing like it stops at you. And if you mess up, you are in charge of all these other things and all these other lives and everything. And I think, again, being a business owner, same thing, is we think about that, like every decision that we make impacts so many others.
Megan Buckley, and I am your community organizer for Global Entrepreneurship Week. The reason why I got involved with Global Entrepreneurship Week is to give opportunities for everyone to see what we really have here in Vegas outside of the Strip. We are a big small town, and we are a thriving business community, and there's just so much to offer here, whether you are a new business going to come to start, or you want to just get out there and connect with more of the community outside of what it is specifically that you do.
I mean, Alex Hormozy too even said, like, I'm trying to remember perfectly, so I'm not probably going to butcher it, but he hired someone and he was like, hey, I want to make this brand happen. And what do you do? He just was like, okay, we're going to pay this. I'm committed to it for 12 years, I think it was. So something like that. He was committed to it for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't just thinking about instant results.
Right.
He committed for a long time.
You know, that's a great point, right? Because I think, you know, we're seeing Alex Hormozi really starting to dominate in the, you know, marketing space and entrepreneurial space as a thought leader. And he did that event that had maybe like 155,000 people live, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was a great demonstration of everything. But we're kind of seeing that, you know, after the, you know, 5-10 plus years he's put into his business and into content creation. And it's interesting, you know, that he made that comment, right? Because I think the juxtaposition of that is the small business owner who makes the commitment for like 3 months and then quits after 1 month. One thing I'm really excited about is all of the entrepreneur organizers, community organizations coming together to host events throughout the Valley to really focus on uplifting entrepreneurs and connecting with folks. If you go to the website, you'll find events hosted by people of all ages, people from all different walks of life, and people from all different levels of business.
So find your niche, I think, is the main suggestion I will say, and think that everything can be a tourism attraction.
That's so fun. And I mean, again, I think that's the fun part about just entrepreneurialism in general is, again, just hearing something like that. I know that sparked my mind to go in a million ways. And I'm sure somebody else watching this, they're like, oh, this and this and this. And so I do think that could really be that key of, instead of just going in that macro kind of vision, it's really looking at, okay, but what is this area or this sector of this city, this town, this region, what are they known for?
It's beautiful, but we wanted tourism so bad that we finally got it. And it was great. But I remember, so the same people who were crying 20 years ago saying, we don't have any tourists, we are so beautiful. So the same people who were crying 20 years ago, we don't have any tourists, we are so beautiful, how is it possible? Today are the same people who are like, they cannot even open the door of their houses because they cannot physically. Like I had a friend writing on Facebook. One Sunday he could not physically leave his house because for the crowd outside of his.
One piece of advice to entrepreneurs, not just here in Las Vegas, but around the world, if you're looking at getting involved with Global Entrepreneurship Week, just show up. Show up. You don't have to host an event. You don't have to create this whole crazy thing. It could be just as simple as showing up and supporting other people, sharing those events. If you see something, let people know what's going on.